Good morning. This is Jane with Scraptastic Yarns podcast, and today is Tuesday, July the 23rd, I believe. As you know, we went back to North Carolina this weekend for my niece's wedding. It was absolutely beautiful and gorgeous. The day turned out really well. Um, Rehearsal Friday was a little hot. It was like 103, felt like 107, even, 5 o'clock in the evening when we were doing the rehearsal. It was really hot. Um, and I was teasing my niece about, what made you decide to have a wedding at 4:30 in July in the afternoon in North Carolina? She goes, she just left the time that was on the slip. And she said, you know, most weddings are right on 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever. She said, we thought half hour sounds good. So, and of course, it was an outside wedding. The reason it was an outside wedding is Allison's brother knew of a family that had dogs, and Allison was looking for a new dog to replace her other dog, Barkley, that her first husband um, whined and pissed and moaned and got custody of. She gave Barkley over. So she waited an appropriate amount of time, and then she was ready to look for a new puppy. So her brother introduced them to this family that had Labrador retrievers, and Allison took Max, and Kevin, it was at his home, and he kept one of the puppies, Max's sister Molly, and they just kind of started talking about their love of dogs, and they kind of hooked up like that, and they started dating, and we had teased because they were practically married anyway. They had been going together for so long and everything. And someone had teased I think it was my mother-in-law had teased him about Christmas is coming. That's a good time to propose. And he said, no, Christmas is a horrible time to propose. And of course he waited till he was ready and he proposed. So the two of these met over dogs, and that's why they wanted to have an outside wedding, so the dogs could be part of the wedding. Molly is Kevin's dog, and she's very well behaved. Kevin's, very good at training. Max is like a wild child. He does follow some commands, but then he loses train of thought, and he's like a kid with ADD, can't sit still. And that's Allison's dog. But Molly was the flower girl. She wore a nice little flower collar. And Max was the ring bearer. And he didn't carry the rings. They had already given the rings to the pastor. But Max had a little tuxedo that he wore. Allison's bridemaid, Emily, brought Max down the aisle. He had to have the harness and the leash because Max is well known for wandering off and getting lost. Molly is well behaved. She walked right down with her daddy, sat right next to him. But once the ceremony got started, Molly, who is very well behaved, got up and started walking around. And the photographer, who is very good friends, leaned down and told Molly that Daddy had treats in his back pocket. So then Molly went and stood behind Kevin for the rest of the ceremony, looking at his back pocket. Max laid down, was as good as could be. The only time he did try to break free was when Allison's dad was walking her down the aisle. Max wanted to go to his mommy, and Emily was doing everything she could to hold Max back. Max finally settled down, realized that she's coming towards him. He was good. When she handed off her flowers to Emily, she made sure she petted Max to calm him down. And then the wedding ceremony proceeded. And it was cooler that day. There were rain showers in Raleigh, Wake County area, severe thunderstorms, but that didn't happen in our end. We were in Mebane, North Carolina, and if you've heard of Aunt Boo comedy and you have seen her talk about the bakery there, it's well known. And so Mebane is a growing little community, but this was an old one-room schoolhouse that had been converted to places for different events, those kind of things. So that's where the wedding was, and it was very nice. I will put some pictures at the end, um, and I will tell you, I thought it was unique the way that they had things set up. They did have, when you walk down the aisles, because there were benches in the outside set up, and they had it set up so that there was a bucket full of iced water, and it said, "Don't sizzle under the sun. Please take a water with you." And then the next bucket was their programs that they had turned into fans with a sign under it that said, "Love can be hot at times. Please take a fan to cool yourself off." So it was really very nicely done, um, and it was just a great time. Now, getting back home, because Thomas's mother um, has some issues with some Alzheimer's. It's very evident. When we were starting out that Friday before the rehearsal, she was ready at like 8 o'clock in the morning to go. And I had to explain to her, no, we don't need to leave until about 4:30 this afternoon. We'll stay here. We'll enjoy each other's company. Then we'll have lunch. And then we'll rest a little bit. You can get a little nap in. And then later on, when it's closer to time, we'll go for the rehearsal. And she was concerned because she said, "We're going to eat twice." I said, "No, not twice tonight. That we're going to have the rehearsal dinner after we do the rehearsal." Um, because they were grilling steaks and they had baked potatoes and all kinds of things for the rehearsal dinner, because that was something that Kevin had wanted. So had to get that across to her several times during the day, um, which I know is part of the Alzheimer's. And of course, when we got home, she was really tired. The heat did take a lot out of her. She wouldn't drink as much as I wanted her to drink because she had some of the adult underwear on in case there was a need for it. But the bathroom was not handicapped accessible, and she would need the rails to help get her up. And she was not going to ask someone to go in with her. So she wouldn't drink because of that. Finally, towards the end, she did drink. When we were having dinner, we did get her to drink quite a bit, but she was pretty wore out. So she went to bed pretty early. And then, of course, the wedding the next day, we had already asked to make sure what time we needed to have her up there for the pictures, because we didn't want her sitting out in the sun. We didn't want her basically getting in the way of the last minute things, because she tends to want to help out, and she's really unable to at this point. So we had set on a time for us to be there when the photographers would be ready to do photos with the family first. Each side of the family, the photographers were going to, there were two, that were going to take pictures one with Kevin and his family, one with Allison and her family. And she argued. She said, no, we have to be up there at noon. And we explained to her, no, we don't have to be there at noon. Um, we already made arrangements. We'll be there at 3:30 for the pictures. The wedding's not till 4:30. It's okay. Allison won't start the wedding without you. We finally got that across to her. And yeah, it was a little cooler. It was 88 degrees. It was a little cloudy that afternoon. Um, as the ceremony was going on, you could hear some thunder boomers, but we really never got any rain or anything out of it, other than it was a little cooler than the day before, which was good. When we did get Mother and Grandma into the building after the wedding, we tried to get her positioned where she could see everything, and she kind of made a hissy fit because she couldn't see. And we kept telling her we wanted you over here so that you could see everybody that would come in for the wedding, and you could also see Kevin and Allison up on the stage at the table they were at. And finally got her in position. Of course, it was a long day. She wanted to wait until Kevin and Allison left the wedding party because, normally after the reception and everything, the married couple leaves. Well, that's not what they had planned on doing because they knew they needed to break everything down. And Kevin and Allison were helping with that. Kevin was bringing the two big, huge fans that had been placed there for the wedding. He was taking those in his truck. They had the dogs, to contend with everything else, and they wanted to get the cross back to where it needed to be, and some other things moved back, and then they were going to come back the next day, the rest of the family. Kevin and Allison were on their way for their honeymoon Sunday. But it was, difficult getting Mom to understand it's okay. They're not going to drive off. Let's go ahead and leave. We made sure that Allison and Kevin came over and said goodbye to Grandma so that we could get her home because she was pretty wore out. And sad thing is, when we got home, we needed to put some things in the garage. We'd asked her to open up the garage door because she has a remote in the house. Um, I walked in and she's turning lights on and off. And I asked her what she was doing. And she said, I'm trying to get the garage door open. And I said to her, Mama, those are the lights. You need the remote for the garage door. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I get so confused. So she got the remote and got the door open. But we knew by then, because, when you take someone with Alzheimer's out of their normal routine, it adds a lot more confusion. So we knew we were going to have a night full, and we did. She did go to bed early, and then, of course, later on that night, probably about 2:30 in the morning, she got up and started fidgeting with everything, wanting to put clothes in the closet, take them out of the closet, reposition pictures on the wall. I didn't sleep well because of that, because of the scurrying and everything. So I got up and kind of messed with her during the night. And then finally she went back and laid down and fell asleep for a little bit so I could go back to bed and sleep. So, didn't get real good sleep Sunday night. Of course, you know what happens after that with the fibromyalgia. It was a long, hard weekend. I knew it would be. I knew I would have a flare-up, and I have a flare-up. And I knew that. So yesterday, Monday, normally it's a day for me to go exercise, do some things. I needed to do some errands and things, and I just didn't do it. I stayed home. I slept off and on. Today is going to be pretty much the same thing. It'll be a lot of rest. So hopefully I can handle the rest of the week because I have a lot on my plate for the rest of the week. So there we are. But it was a good time, so we did enjoy it. And on the way down, of course, car ride, made a couple of hats. These two are knit. This one's crocheted. Made a larger hat. Um, I had a plan to start working on some more hats for Billy. I have quite a few scraps, so I can make quite a few hats. And we had also decided to add the older siblings to provide a couple of hats for older siblings for the baby at the hospital so that, if there was an older sibling, they could come in and get a hat. One of my other finished objects was I did a shawl, started this shawl, and completed it yesterday evening. And this is the Naomi shawl that is by, I'm going to show you the picture. It is the Naomi shawl, and it is done by Carolyn Christmas. She's also goes by Gourmet Crochet, and that is actually where I purchased this book. At the time, she did not do digitals. I believe she sells on Etsy and Ravelry now as CarolynChristmas.com. If you go to CarolynChristmas.com, she's got a couple of other patterns. I haven't noticed the Naomi up on the Etsy shop. Perhaps, because when you put digital patterns up on Etsy shop, you have to, give a number of how many you have, and then once that number is depleted, then you can renew the listing with additional. It's just trust me, it's interesting. So I think that may be why that Naomi shawl is not up there, is because it may have already sold out, or perhaps she decided to retire it. But I purchased that probably 7 or 8 years ago. Never made it. It's real easy. It uses a seed stitch. And then she has that beautiful border. And it just came, as you can see, I enjoyed doing it. I used 4 skeins of mulberry mix. And got about that much left. So I may be able to get a baby hat out of that. That's about it. I did receive a nice little package, and this one came from Camille, and she sent a lovely little note, and she sent me a couple of fat squares, or fat quarters, and it was just very nice, little letter. She had said, can't thank you enough, is what the card says. Thank you so much for the shout out. It was so uplifting to have the encouragement and support when first starting my channel. I have much to learn, but I am so motivated. Thank you for your great kindness. And that is Camille, also known as DollyFace Knits. And I hope you got to look and see the latest video I saw was of her and her friend at Hobby Lobby. But then she also sent this tea as well, and I had noticed on one of the, when I had talked about teas that Lilybeth had sent, there was one in there that was, that I had wondered if it was the one tea that my husband and I used to enjoy when we went to the Chinese restaurant, and she said she thought it was this Pura tea. So, and it may be, but I'm not positive. So, we'll look and see. She sent this lovely, 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 pretty purple. It's got a beautiful design. And then she also sent, and when I opened it up, I just started laughing. And I will tell you why, Camille. When I go over to my classes at the Bernina store with Hoovers, they had a woman that used to do all of the different kind of products that they would get, like the Bosel, the Flex Foam, those kind of things. She did a lot of projects using those items, like the Terra Magic and the, all kinds of things like that. That was her niche at this store. She has since moved to Georgia, I believe. Since her husband passed away, she moved to Georgia, so they didn't have anyone else to do these things, and she had a class where she made the leaf bowl. And I never got to go because of things that were going on. So she did send the instruction sheet for the leaf bowl. That pretty fat quarter for the leaf bowl, and it is beautiful. You do need 2 fabrics, one for each side. And then she also sent a piece of the Bosel. And it is it's really stiff, but you use a hot iron to adhere the fabric to one side to the other side. You sew along the outside, after you've cut out your pattern. And then you can heat it with either the iron or a hair dryer to form the bowl. And that's what happens with this. And when Cecile, the lady that moved, was here, we had always talked about that those make great bowls for the clips that you use when you're sewing. So I just hadn't got a chance to make it because Cecilia was gone. There wasn't anybody that was taking over that class. And then here comes Camille to the rescue. So Camille, it worked out beautifully. Thank you so much for your gift. And if you've seen Billy of the Crafty Floridians, you know that I have another Moo in the making. And I watched her this morning, and we had talked about, different fabrics, and I told her about the one that I had a long time ago. Loved it. Was really looking forward to maybe some purples or green, maybe a maroon or something. And I told Billy, just choose what you want, and because I know she has good taste. And she said she knew she had a fabric that she had in mind that had purples in it. She wanted to use it. She showed that this morning, and it's perfect. It's what I had in my head, that I really would have liked something that was like that. So, see, things work out. When you give people the right amount of stuff to do, it comes out right. Last night I had posted on the group that because I was still tired, I didn't, want to have to think long and hard. I'd finished the shawl. I was looking to start another project. I had all this camo yarn. I wanted to make a lap gown for a man. And so I did start one with the help of a member who pointed out when she has camo, she uses seed stitch, which is what this other pattern was. I just finished it. Why I couldn't think of that, I don't know. But I'm tired and lazy, what can I say? So I did start blanket. I am using a larger hook for this, just because I think men don't get often as cold as women do. So they do get cold. So I thought I would use a larger hook, and I'm really liking the way that it is coming out. It is the seed stitch, basically, single crochet in one, double crochet in the next. Then when you come back around the next time, you put a single in the double and a double in the single. Yeah, brain. Couldn't think of it that simple. The other thing I have been working on is my Jaden stitches. I still have to make the houses. Got the sun done. Got a couple of trees. I'm not real happy with the trees. Got my barn done. Need to start the houses. Haven't started that. And then I also need to start my other part of the project that I'm going to add in. There's two that I want to add. So I'm having fun with that. Trying to come up with ideas for how I want to form these little appliques to put in there. So that's kind of interesting. It's a lot of fun. That is it for that portion of the podcast. So we're going to go into What in Tarnation. I'm going to get a sip of coffee here. But in the meantime, I would appreciate it if you would give this video thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And share. Let's do that. It helps with the algorithm, apparently. Some sort of nonsense or whatever. Do have a couple of other plans coming up. I will be doing a shout out video tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon, so kind of look out for that. And yeah, it's getting hot out there. Lots of things to do, and I still have to do the study of the planet Earth. I haven't got started on that. Block 14. Sometimes I wonder why we put so much on ourselves. I think it's, as I always tease, when I'm knitting and crocheting, keeps me out of the bars. It's a joke, folks. I don't go to bars. Anyway, now it's time for What in Tarnation. And we have a couple. First one is a Minnesota toddler has been found after he took a joyride on his battery-powered John Deere tractor to the county fair. The 2.5-year-old wanted to go back to the county fair and drove from his home to the fair without telling his parents. Chicago County Sheriff Sergeant Jason Foster told KARE 11. Dispatchers got a call Thursday night that the toddler was missing and found him safe minutes later in the middle of the fairground, the sheriff's office said in a Facebook post. The boy's family said their home was about a block and a half from the fairgrounds, and he had seen the rides being set up during the previous days. Foster said the child drove the tractor down the sidewalk, through a back gate, and navigated through a heavy crowd there for motocross races before he arrived at the tilt-a-whirl, which he wanted to ride. However, before he got on the ride, State Representative Brian Johnson, the former Yslati County deputy, saw him and determined the boy was alone. Johnson flagged down a deputy who helped reunite the boy with his father. The father has suspended his son's driving privileges by pulling out the tractor's battery. That's a smart kid. This next one comes to us from India. Tiger fleeing the floodwaters breaks into a home and relaxes in bed. Wildlife rescuers in India shared photos of a wild tiger that escaped a flood and wandered into a family's home, where it was found taking a rest on a bed. The Wildlife Trust of India tweeted photos showing the tiger relaxing on a bed inside a family's home in Harmudi, Assam. Officials said the tiger is believed to have fled monsoon flooding in the neighboring Kaziranga National Park. Our vet is making plans with Assam Forest Department to tranquilize the tiger that has entered the house. The floods bring in unusual guests. I will say definitely yes. A billion choices on the Twitter feed says the bag, but this tiger chose bed and breakfast to escape the Assam floods. And there is that tiger sleeping on the bed. This next one, this little boy is probably going to go into advertising. Police called the boy's ice-cold beer stand, find root beer instead. Police in Utah said they received multiple calls about a young boy selling ice-cold beer at the side of the road, but officers arrived to discover the truth was in the fine print. The Brigham City Police Department said officers investigated multiple reports of a young boy selling beverages on the side of the road with a sign reading ice-cold beer. The department said the officers arrived on the scene and discovered the boy's sign had the word root in small print over beer. He was selling root beer. His marketing strategy has resulted in several calls to BCPD, but apparently it's paid off as business has been good. And that one's a rather cute one. Now this next one, and you'll notice I'm skipping back and forth, and there's a reason I'm skipping back and forth. This next one, apparently emus and llamas are on the loose everywhere. An emu spotted running loose through North Carolina counties. Authorities in North Carolina said they are searching for an emu that was caught on camera after multiple sightings across 2 counties. Orange County Animal Services said it received numerous calls in recent weeks about an emu on the loose. The animal is believed to be hanging around the border of Orange and Chatham counties. The large flightless bird was caught on video July 6th in the Chatham County woods. The emu's origins were unknown, and authorities did not say when they first reported the sightings were. However, Orange County resident John Brennan said he first spotted the emu wandering through a road on June the 27th. Emus and llamas on the loose. This next one I thought was rather cute because it's been hot. Nebraska Weather Service bakes biscuits in a hot car. National Weather Service staff in Nebraska illustrated the recent heat wave by baking a batch of biscuits inside a car. The National Weather Service in Omaha live tweeted the results as they put a batch of biscuits in the window of a car left out in the sun. If you're wondering if it's going to be hot today, we're attempting to bake biscuits using only the sun and a car in a parking lot, the National Weather Station of Omaha tweeted. We'll keep you posted with the progress. The pan reached a high temperature of 185 degrees during the experiment, which occasionally required the car to be moved to keep the sun shining on the biscuits. The biscuits began to brown on the outside and eventually seemed done enough on the outside to try eating them after a total of 8 hours in the car. The workers said they were pretty doughy in the middle, but crispy enough on the outside to be edible. After nearly 8 hours in the sun, the outside of the biscuit is actually edible. The middle is still pretty doughy though. The max temperature on the pan was 185. Also, we made festive biscuit hats. Stay cool out there. And there are those biscuits and that hat they made. Now, I've been seeing memes on Facebook about being able to cook lasagna in your mailbox. I wouldn't doubt it. So if you're out there and it's hot for you, by all means, please keep hydrated. Um, that is the easiest way for all of us to get into trouble with heat strokes and everything else. I have a son that works in residential and commercial heating, geothermal, and constantly he has to go up into attics in the summer. Attics can reach a temperature of 115 to 140, I believe. And he drinks a lot of Gatorade, a lot of water. And you can only stay up there because it's almost too hot to breathe. You only stay up there a few minutes. When you have to come down, get out of it. So if you have repairmen working in your attics, make sure you've got some water nearby, Gatorade for them. It's handy. Okay, that's it for today. So I will see you again tomorrow when I have some shout outs ready for you. I'll film that later on this afternoon so it can go up tomorrow while I'm out running around, like a wild woman. And remember, everybody, be kind. We can all use it during this heat. We all get kind of nasty because we're hot, tired, dusty, thirsty, those kind of things. But remember, practice kindness. Okay? Bye.
There's no hole on the bottom. It just looks going off.
We see which one.
Yeah.